Good afternoon, and welcome to the Introduction to the Gifts Refresher Massive Open online course. My name is Patrick Shepard, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by Suzanne Meyer. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Patrick.
So thank you all for joining us today. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but we do want to share with you today some strategies for using the resources in the Institute for Ethics and Government Education Library to prepare yourselves and your team members for the coming gift advice and counsel season. As we all know, we get a lot of gifts questions this time of year.
'Tis the season for gifts questions.
Yeah, and what we're hoping to do in today's presentation is give you some strategies to take some of the stress out of all of that advice and counsel, to prepare yourselves and prepare your teams so that you are don't feel deluged by these questions and that you're ready for them. And we're going to show you some ways you can use the tools in the Institute for Ethics and Government to accomplish that. So in the interest of time, I think we'll just get into the slides.
Sounds good.
So I want to start here with some tips for success. So I think you probably share this experience that when it comes to our own professional development, one of the big challenges is making the time.
Right. Yeah. You need to, you need to schedule the time, make the investment now because,
The questions are coming, right?
Exactly.
They're going to be there soon. I experienced the same challenge. I say, I really need to make time to read that new opinion, or I really need to review those materials.
Right.
And once we get busy, we have questions coming in, we have meetings popping up. It's the easiest thing to let slide.
Right. I think what helps is if you get others to commit to the training with you, or you organize the training, then other people are involved. You're invested in the time. You have a commitment to other people, and also it makes it much more interesting and fun to do the training with other people.
No, absolutely. I think making the professional development process into a bit of a team sport can be really helpful. And if you're anything like me, you know that I just follow the instructions of the calendar on my email program. If I'm not told to do it by the calendar, it doesn't get done. So something you could start with today is to make some time for the modules. Put them on your calendar now. And you can do that on your own, or better still, as Suzanne mentioned, with your colleagues. Make it a team exercise. Something else we like to do here at OGE is try and be consistent with the day and times you take the trainings. When we have new employees come through, we try and make an hour every week for their professional development. And we try and make that the same hour every week.
Right.
We're not perfect at that. Sometimes we have to move it. Sometimes events intervene. But consistency can be helpful. So that's a few tips that you can use, and especially if you're a leader of a program, that can be really helpful to get your team up to speed.
And also, we have scheduled these trainings to follow in the consecutive weeks. So it's a good idea if you could complete the trainings in advance of the next training session. So we're hoping you can finish this one, today or by December 1st, and you could even look at it in, increments, go over some of it, look at 20 minutes of it, add your own scenarios in place of the ones that we give you. It's very flexible, and you can have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've proposed this schedule, and this is by no means binding. You'll find in the session description for today's presentation links to all of these classes. They already exist. You could sit down this afternoon and watch them all straight through if you wanted to. That may be a little overwhelming. Your colleagues might wonder what happened to you. But we've proposed a schedule that we think is hopefully workable. But if you feel like you need to be prepared earlier, or your whole team's in next week and you want to knock it out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that's totally okay. But our suggestion is, so that you're ready before the deluge happens, to start with the seasonal look at gifts by not later than the 1st of December. Get everyone oriented to the revised gift rule, the general process for analyzing gifts.
I think it's usually right after Thanksgiving, people start sending their cards, and that's, I think, when, we can expect that the season is going to start to hit us in terms of gifts and gifts questions.
Absolutely. So if you can establish that baseline in the next week or so, that'll help your programs and your team members be ready. And the next module we'd suggest you take a look at is the gifts between employees. And this is one I tend to forget about. We don't get a lot of gifts between employees here questions at OGE and you're focused on those outside events that your executives are invited to holiday parties and the like.
Right.
And you forget about all those sticky questions around the Christmas party gift exchange or the holiday party gift exchange or the white elephants or whatever those things are.
Yeah, and there's something, a special and frequent occasion. We know in general the holiday season is not a special and frequent occasion, but by looking and reviewing these, reviewing this module, you can refresh what you know and learn what you don't know.
Absolutely. And we also get lots of invitations, so we also recommend you take a look at the widely attended gatherings course, both parts 1 and 2. And maybe your whole team doesn't need to take the widely attended gatherings part. Maybe you assign that to some specific folks. But this is just a proposed schedule. Use these courses however you want. But we do encourage you to make yourself a schedule, to create some accountability mechanism to make sure that you're preparing for the increase in the gift season. We also give you a link to a bonus module on fundraising. This time of year, sometimes there's an effort. You have an increase in questions about fundraising in the workplace, things like food drives and the like. And that broadcast could be helpful if that's your situation. Suzanne, you suggested earlier that making this a team effort, a thing you do with your colleagues is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it just, well, it obligates you to each other to do this. But I also think it's, it is like team building, and you can, work on these problems together. And I think it's more fun than sitting by yourself at your computer, going through the module. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think it gives you guys an opportunity to really make the training more relevant than we can make it for you, because you can share with your colleagues your own institutional expertise, your institutional memory about the kinds of gifts that come up, and really add some value there, because here we try and come up with examples that are most broadly applicable. That's our goal, is so that these courses are relevant to everyone, but you're able to really focus down on the questions you actually receive. So we've provided you here some possible discussion questions. For example, how did this most recently come up at our agency?
Right.
Right. You guys know how the gifts questions arise much better than we can. Also, what are the most common ways we encounter this? And who has the expertise? I think that's an important one.
Yeah. And when you see a high volume come in, how do you, triage the requests? You get all of a sudden you're getting questions. People are being offered gifts. It depends on the nature of your agency and how much there's involvement with outside sources or vendors. And it's good if you take a look at, you get to learn each other's level of expertise and be able to, triage the questions so you don't have, you're not stuck with this kind of logjam of questions and no way to respond.
Absolutely. And, we've both worked in agencies.
Yeah.
My experience in the agency is there were a couple events that came up regularly.
Right.
And if I remembered that and went to the advice archive and pulled out the opinion I wrote last time and refreshed myself on the fact pattern, it made life a lot easier. If I didn't do that, you get caught unawares and have to sort of scramble to figure that out.
Right.
So this is something that you could maybe do in a group debrief after taking these classes.
Yeah. And how do you remind employees in the agency to seek advice on these matters? So it's also a good time, I think, probably to outreach to your employees and let them know you're here, if they get these kind of questions, and that they're, they know how to contact you and feel comfortable reaching out to you.
Absolutely. And if you have some stock guidance that you can share with your employees about things that are okay or things that are definitely not okay, this is a good time to make those reminders. You might be able to reduce your workload, or at least make sure that as the questions come in, they're better informed questions. You get more complete fact patterns.
Yep.
So we really hope you take this opportunity to kind of customize your experience of refreshing for the gifts, advice, and counsel season. We have a few other possible discussion questions. Think about those questions that come in every year that are really hard, that are just a pain, and be ready for those. Figure out who's gonna take care of those, so that person can prepare themselves. Maybe look at what you did last year. We all get these time-sensitive questions.
Right.
Ethics officer, I've been invited to this party.
And it's tonight.
It's always tonight.
Yep.
It's never 2 weeks from now.
Exactly.
It's always this evening.
Or actually, it was last night.
Yeah.
So
we know that's going to happen, but thinking about that ahead of time, saying, yeah, this is our person who's going to get really smart on events and be ready and prepared to handle those. And we're going to have enough people in the office to handle that rush. It can be really important. And I think this third one is really good, especially if you've had turnover in your program. You can make your life a lot easier by allowing your newer folks to handle the simpler questions. You can use this training opportunity to help them get up to speed on some of those simpler questions that can free up your more expert resources to handle those time-sensitive and challenging questions.
right.
But it takes a little bit of investment and a little bit of planning to get there.
Yep.
Which is sort of the last one. How are we going to prioritize these if we have more than we can handle? Who goes first? What's the thing?
Yeah.
Because as we know from the gift rule, it is always appropriate and frequently prudent to decline gifts.
Exactly. And in these trainings that you're going to be watching, you'll see that we cover our, fairly recent, in the past couple of years, regulation where we ask you to take a look at and consider declining otherwise permissible gifts. So you'll see a lot of time addressing that in this refresher course. And that's something to kind of get to be we want that to be a reflexive act to consider whether you should decline an otherwise permissible gift.
No, and I think that's a really good thing to consider if you're doing awareness raising.
Yeah.
To remind people of that process, of their obligation to think about the effect a gift might have on the integrity of their service.
Right, and appearance issues, yeah.
So I think those are really good things. So we'd like to sort of finish this broadcast so you can get started reviewing the courses in the Massive Open Online class. So just in conclusion, we just have a few tips.
So basically, make the time to prepare now. So right now, if you're listening, you've made the commitment, and we hope you'll stay for the next a little bit under 90 minutes. And you could, like we said, you can just stop it and go back to it later, but take the time to prepare because it's going to help you when these questions come in. It really is worth the time to invest.
Absolutely. And as you suggested, like involving the team is really good. It allows you to take a team approach to the increased workload. And it's also more fun. It allows you to get consistency and share institutional knowledge.
Right. And then find ways to raise awareness. One thing we did when I was in an agency, we would include around this time in our agency newsletter, we'd include information about holiday gifts, general questions that are pretty easy to answer and that most people would have at this time of year.
Yep. Now, and finally, having a plan to handle the increase in volume is really important. We know this work is coming. We have some time right now to prepare ourselves, and we hope you take the time to make the preparations so that when it arrives, you don't have a stressful holiday gift season, because no one wants to have a more stressful holiday gift season.
Right.
So that's all we have today. Thank you, Suzanne, very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me. Yeah, and I brought this gluten-free card to offer you. And can Patrick accept it?
Yes, you'll have to watch the class.
You'll have to watch the class to see. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you all for joining us. And we hope that this is helpful and prepares you and your agencies to handle the increase in workload that we see at this time of year. We look forward to joining you again soon.
Happy holidays.